Now, what's interesting about this from the perspective of desire, love, and attachment is that the categorizations of children into one of these 4 different categories as toddlers is strongly predictive of their attachment style in romantic partnerships later in life, which is, to me, both amazing and surprising and not surprising all at the same time. Amazing because it means that, first of all, we are relatively hardwired for attachment. I think that that's incredible and beautiful that we have designated neurons, nerve cells, and hormonal systems that are there to ensure that we have some sort of response to a caregiver being there or not being there or returning or leaving, but also that the same neural circuitries, the same hormonal responses are at least in some way repurposed for entirely different types of attachments later in life. So when we hear the psychologists talk about how, we formed a template early in life based on experiences that were even pre-verbal before we had language, and those templates are superimposed on our relationships, or we should say our later relationships are superimposed on those templates, there really is a basis for that. We now have neuroimaging studies to support, for instance, the work of Alan Shore from UCLA, showing that when a mother and child interact, either through very soothing interactions like bottle feeding or breastfeeding or singing to one's baby or putting them to sleep, that the brain of the child and the brain of the mother are entering a coordinated state of relaxation. And it's not one direction, mother to child. The child is also calming the mother. Typically, these studies were done with mothers, again, sometimes with fathers, but typically with mothers. And in addition to that, when the mother or other caregiver acts very excited and raises their voice or puts a lilt in their voice or widens their eyes, that the child will do the same. And again, there's a bidirectional interaction in that case of excitement. And there's the release of neurochemicals like dopamine into the bloodstream. Whereas in the relaxation scenario and the soothing scenario, we know the release of things like serotonin and oxytocin. So the neural systems for attachment and the neural systems for what we call autonomic arousal, for being alert and calm, don't act in a vacuum. They are tethered to other people in our environment. And of course, we know this, right? We sometimes hear the statement, no one can make you feel anything. I've always had a little bit of a problem with that statement. I don't think I'm contradicting anyone in particular, but you hear that a lot. No one can make you feel anything. Indeed, they can, right? A physical injury can make you feel something. If somebody says something that you very much like, it can make you feel something. And if somebody says something that you very much dislike, it will make you feel something. So the idea that no one can make us feel anything isn't actually true. Our nervous system is tethered to the nervous systems of others. And that is true from the very earliest stages of our lives. And in this case, we're talking about how our templates for attachment in romantic relationships, how we find them, how we maintain them, and indeed how we break them and reform them, is based on a template that was established through an entirely different set of priorities, which was how we feel safe and secure in novel environments, depending on whether or not our primary caregiver is there or not. Neuroimaging supports that. When I say neuroimaging, I mean brain scans support that. Measures of hormones in the body and brain support that. Measures of neurochemicals support that. There's simply no way around this truth that we have a set of roadmaps in our mind that are reused for entirely different purposes later in life. That is vitally important to understand, because if one is successful in forming romantic attachments, maintaining them, etc., or not, does in fact reflect the earlier templates that you've created. But as I've mentioned before, the good news is that these templates can shift over time. And one of the more powerful ways to shift those templates over time is purely by the knowledge that they exist and the understanding that those templates are malleable. They can change through the process of neuroplasticity. Again, neuroplasticity is just a rewiring of nerve connections that is very much present in childhood, but also very much present in adulthood. So if you're somebody who you think falls into category 1, 2, 3, or 4, or you know somebody or involved with somebody who falls into category 1, 2, 3, and 4, the mere knowledge of that can be very useful. But you might ask, well, what do I do with that knowledge? Well, fortunately, both psychologists and biologists have started to leverage that knowledge toward establishing better, more secure bonds in adult romantic relationships. And there's a book that has really tapped into this. I think it's the first book that has really addressed this head on. And that book comes from two Columbia professors. And the title of the book is Attached: The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. The authors of this book are Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Again, both of them are skilled academics and researchers who have really taken the literature that I described on the strange situation task and mapped it to adult attachment styles. And also, they've mapped out ways that they've observed in their clinical practice and that is laboratory supported for instance, people that have an anxious ambivalent, or what we would call an insecure attachment style, or for people that fall into the disorganized or disoriented attachment style, how they can modify that attachment style in or out of relationships in order to establish what I think everybody wants, which is secure attachment.